J'aime beaucoup les gens.
Tout le monde.
Et si on n'aurait pas de chance, je sais pas que j'aimerais même un bouton de porte, n'est-ce pas, un pot de chambre, n'importe quoi.
An artistic genius who revolutionized modern art, Picasso has also been described as violent, jealous, perverse, and destructive. His relationship with women is now in the spotlight as the Picasso Museum here in Paris hosts an exhibition engaging with accusations of misogyny that have been levelled at him. It's part of a broader reckoning in the art world in a post-MeToo climate. And to discuss those issues, I'm joined by author and journalist Judith Benhamou. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Now let's start with some of the women in Picasso's life. People like doormats, Marie-Thérèse Walter, Françoise Gillot. Now these were lovers, life partners, but they were also called muses. And what can we understand from that word, muse? What did it involve?
I think he was obviously a womanizer, but his energy, his creative energy was linked to his sexual energy in a way. And he was not always choosing beautiful women, but women with a very specific physique, I think. So, for example, Marie-Thérèse Walter, he met her when she was 17 and he was around 50, and she had a light in her. But it was not exactly a beauty, but he had kind of fantasy. And when he saw her at the entrance of Les Galeries Lafayette, he had like a flash. He went to speak to her, and she became a model and exactly a muse. There's a famous year, 1932, where everything is about Marie-Thérèse and his sexual appealing and his fascination for what she represents.
And that was, as well as his desire for women. According to one of his biographers, Picasso's feeling for women ranged from extreme tenderness to violent hatred. And the artist said himself, there are only two kinds of women, goddesses and doormats. How do you think the suffering that he inflicted on women affected his image?
I think it didn't affect it much. Not yet. It will happen, but not yet. Because he's a real genius, and like many geniuses, he was a monster, not only with women. I mean, his kids, one of his sons, Polo, suffered a lot. His granddaughter, Marina, speaks very openly about the fact that she hates him. One of his partners, François Gillot, wrote a book in 1964, Vivre avec Picasso, which described him really like a monster. So there's a long time already we know he's a monster. And when Picasso died, after some years, the mother of Maya, Marie-Thérèse Walter, commit suicide. Not when she was dumped, but after he died. It's so strong. I mean, she dedicated her life to him in a way, and because she was 17, and after that, what to do? She was really lost. And you can observe that with all the women he was with, except with François Gillot, but with all the other women, they could not live without him.
Speaking of reviewing, Picasso's portraits of the women in his life are being reconsidered by French artist ORLAN in a new show at the Picasso Museum. Here she explores his work from a feminist point of view and in a contemporary context. Our reporters Julien Sauvager and Jenny Shin went to check it out.
Exorbité, énervé, en colère. Je m'adresse pas à Picasso.
I'm not directing
Je
this at
m'adresse à toutes
Picasso.
les femmes qui sont dans
I'm
des
speaking to all
situations
women who are in difficult
problématiques
situations
où
and up
elles
against
subissent
patriarchy.
la loi du patriarcat.
At 75 years old, ORLAN is still a tireless figurehead of provocative feminism. She made her name in 1977 during a social stunt, where she offered an artist's kiss for 5 francs. A pioneer of body art, her own body is a tool and canvas to express her artistic visions.
I took fragments of my face and rearranged them in a very violent way, like a collage.
It's no coincidence that she draws inspiration from Picasso, the Franco-Spanish legend whose legacy has been tainted by his behavior towards women. his sexism and misogyny intrinsically linked to his artistic creation.
This is a message to all women who are objectified. I ask them to become the subject of my art and emancipate themselves. We see tears, but we also see women who are fully aware and fed up, who are tired of suffering, and who want to move on and show it too.
Confronting Picasso's controversial past is a bold step by the museum. And by inviting ORLAN, they knew that she would not spare the artist's image.
She has her own vision of men and an accusatory vision of Picasso's sexism. And at the same time, she's getting artistic inspiration from his work. And that's what's interesting, allowing this contemporary debate to take place in the museum, to express itself.
ORLAN's message resounds loud and clear within the museum's walls, a tribute to all of Picasso's models and muses without whom he would never have been.
Now, Judith, the decision to stage this show comes from the Picasso Museum's director, Cécile Debray, who says that the #MeToo movement has certainly tarnished Picasso's image, but also she doesn't want a younger generation just to see him through the lens of misogyny. Do you think that in the coming years, Picasso could be a victim of cancel culture?
He could, but he's an absolute genius. Like, for example, Céline, even if we can't compare because Picasso was not a monster as Céline was anti-Semitic, for example, the writer. But it can damage his reputation, but he's still very strong in the art market, for example. And he's amazing how he was able to create and to recreate himself. During all his career, there's almost nothing to throw about Picasso.
He had an amazing approach to career management, that's true. What about the Me Too movement? Do you think that that repositioned criticism of him in a way?
Could what?
Do you think it repositioned criticism of him?
I think, for example, now there's this Maya show. For example, Dora Maar, after she was dumped, she had a crisis of mysticism. I read her personal diary, and it's crazy. She was just thinking about Christ and was isolated in the small house he bought for her in Ménherbe. So they, in a way, they breathe with him.
Now, I mentioned the Me Too movement there. It also sparked a wider debate about conflating a person with their artistic output. We spoke to French author Sophie Chauveau about that subject, and her book, Picasso the Minotaur, deals with the two faces of the artist, a sacred monster whose treatment of his friends, lovers, and children sits uncomfortably with his status as a demigod in the art world. This is what she had to say about the possibility of separating the art from the artist.
We should be able to have an intimate understanding of the lives of people, including or especially people we admire. It is okay to say that we admire someone if they have created something. Picasso was an inventor. He invented works of art throughout the 20th century. He was a genius, and I rarely use that term, but he was also a total bastard.
Judith, what do you think? Can we ever really separate a painting from the person who made it?
We can't. For sure, but I think he was mistreating also some men. For example, I'm not sure that he was very friendly with Julio González, who showed him how to use iron in his work, and he made a lot with that. And the posterity was more for Picasso than for Julio González. So there's no Me Too movement for underestimated artist, right? So it was like that. He was a real monster, for sure. What can we say? But he was a real genius in the same time.
Well, someone who had a very different relationship with Picasso was Maya, his daughter, who features in a number of portraits. Now, these intimate, affectionate paintings are part of a second exhibition at the Picasso Museum, which shines a light on a doting father. Let's take a look.
It's an intimate showcasing of her grandfather's illustrious legacy. Diana never met Pablo Picasso, who died in 1973, just before she was born. For this exhibition at the Picasso Museum in Paris, she's opened doors to a treasure trove of family memorabilia entrusted to her by her mother Maya.
This is one of Picasso's first slippers that he gave to his daughter. He had a habit of keeping objects to almost an obsessive degree. He believed that everything represented a memory in his life.
Maya is the second of Picasso's 4 children, an illegitimate child from his long-standing affair with Marie-Thérèse Walter. He painted more than a dozen portraits of his daughter with a particular penchant for her profile view, the angle from which she resembles him most. This sketchbook preserves remnants of a game they used to play together. He would draw her circus scenes, and Maya would play the teacher.
He would show her how to draw a bowl, a hat, and then he would grade it.
She would grade it?
Yes, usually between 10 and 12 out of 20. We're harsh in our family.
Picasso painted 14 portraits of Maya in total, 11 of which have been unarchived for the exhibition. She would pose with her toy boat, a butterfly net, and he would convey his fatherly tenderness with vibrant colors.
With these paintings, we sense a change in Picasso, a more psychological approach. Compared to his other children's portraits, we get an impression of a distinct personality in the ones of Maya.
During the war, Picasso carved these wooden doll figurines, as well as these whimsical cutouts and origami birds. His love for his daughter shining through in this dedication. For my darling daughter, from your father, Picasso.
Judith, you've seen this show. What do you think that these domestic scenes, these domestic portraits tell us about family life in the Picasso household that we didn't know?
I think Picasso is really attached to the kids in general. And when they become older, it's different. And we can link that to his fascination for naive painting, for example. He likes a kind of primitivity from the expression of kids. He's fascinated by that. And once he said that he wanted to paint like a kid for someone who didn't go to the academy. So there's this relation of total ingenuity of kids that fascinate him, I think.
Indeed, a certain innocence. Judith, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll wrap up the show with another look at Picasso's work, but this time in Senegal. This show explores the artist's dialogue with African masks and sculpture. That's on display at the Museum of Black Civilizations in Dakar. Do remember to check out our website for more arts and culture. We're on social media too. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.